Time for the 49ers Rush Podcast.
We are down to number 42 on the 49ers roster countdown of players who have the most importance or impact on the 2022 football season for the 49ers. And we've got a new addition, another free agent, very specialized. This is going to be our kick returner, punt returner specialist with a little bit of wide receiver flavor. We're going to share some film here in a little bit. Wide receiver Ray McCloud. He's going to be wearing jersey number 3, small guy, 5'9", 190, entering his 5th season. He's only 25 years old, so pretty young whenever you consider he's been around for 5 years. And I think this year's draft and undrafted class has been a little bit different because you have all the COVID exemptions, and so you've got these players that played in college for 5 to 6 years, and so they're older, a lot of them. And so, like, whenever we go to somebody that's been around for 5 years in the NFL and only being 25, that's a little bit different. It's a little variation from what we've been seeing lately. Now, he grew up in Tampa, Florida, played at Sickles High School, the Fighting Griffins, and chose to play at Clemson, and he could have gone anywhere. Chose Clemson over Alabama, over Auburn, a whole bunch of other schools, and majored in health science at Clemson. Now, while he was in high school, man, he was nuts. He was a running back, small, undersized running back, right? Only 5'9". But as a senior, he rushed for 1,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, and his entire college or high school career, over 5,700 yards and 58 touchdowns. He was productive, to say the least. And again, chose him. Clemson over Florida, all these different places, you know, he kind of cashed in, and no lie. Now, I'm going to throw up this film real quick, and sorry, it's got an intro and all that stuff, and, I muted it out. Now, if you want to see the full breakdown of his play at wide receiver for the Steelers, all that's going to be over at Patreon, so just go to patreon.com/49ers Rush Podcast, or just Google 49ers and Patreon. We're the first to pull up. Now, before he got to Clemson, he was nuts. And if you looked at his rankings by Rivals.com, they had him the highest. He was the number 23 player overall, number 2 wide receiver in the nation. So he was huge. All-state selection. You know, I talked about all of his numbers and all of those things. I mean, he was nuts. Now, whenever he got to Clemson, as a true freshman, he stepped in and started playing right away. Played in 12 games as a freshman in 2015, caught 29 passes, 251 yards, 1 touchdown. He did miss 3 games because of a knee injury. He has had some minor, knee, ankle, whatever that's caused him to miss games in college and in the NFL, just kind of nagging things, nothing too major. As a sophomore, played in 14 games, missed 1 because of an ankle injury, kind of like I said. Helped Clemson go to the national championship, had 49 receptions, 472 yards, 2 touchdowns. Junior year, kind of same thing, played in every single Clemson game, all 14, 49 receptions, 500 yards, 1 touchdown, all those different things. And then he started returning punts, and this is whenever he kind of realized, and I think everybody realized, exactly what his career was going to be. He's a return specialist. Now, he can help you as a wide receiver. The game we're watching right now versus the Vikings, I think that's when Juju Smith was out. They had a couple suspensions, I think, as well. So he had to fill in as a starting wide receiver, and he could do that. He can run the slant. He's a gadget guy, again, a little bit undersized, but he can provide depth at the wide receiver position. That's not the goal, though. He's the number 5 wide receiver for this team. Just understand. You got Debo, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings. You got Danny Gray, the 3rd-round pick this year, and then Ray McCloud. Those are the 5. That's not changing. And maybe Ray McCloud is ahead of Danny Gray currently, but it doesn't matter. Those 4 or 5 guys, though, that's who they are. If you look at last year, that was, Trent Sherfield and Travis Benjamin. Those 2 have been replaced by Danny Gray and Ray McCloud, which I think every single 49ers fan in the world is going to be excited about. Now, let's talk about what he was able to accomplish at his pro day and his combine for his athletic profile. Again, nothing really stood out. He ran, I think it was a 4.53 at the combine. At his pro day, he did a 4.49. He's a speed guy, not a top-end speed track guy. That's not what he is. He is acceleration, straight line speed. So whenever you think of these small, shifty guys, He's not the most shifty. He ran a 6.89 3-cone, which is good. Not great. Like he's not, even whenever you watch his special teams film, like he's not Barry Sanders. He's not shifty. That's not really what he is. He just gets to where he wants to go really quick, quicker than fast, and he just explodes off the line. I mean, he gets off the line in a hurry, and that's kind of what makes him so consistent in the punt return and kick return game. Bench press reps, he had 13 reps at 225, 34.5-inch vertical. His athletic player comps over at mockdraftable.com are Jalen Waddle and McCole Hardman, right? So I didn't want to put Jalen Waddle on there because Waddle has, that shiftiness that's just elite, but the acceleration is there with Waddle and with Ray McCloud. I think he's closer to McCole Hardman. I think much closer to that type of player where he doesn't have the top end speed, right? McCole Hardman was like a 4.3 guy, but he's got that same acceleration. And he can do some damage. He's a damage player. That's just kind of what he is. Now, he signed a 2-year, $4 million deal with the 49ers, $2.7 million guaranteed. And the 49ers have an out after this year. And basically, they would owe $875,000 dead money, but they could get out if they want to. I don't think that they will. That's a pretty cheap deal. He was a 6th-rounder. He got drafted in the 6th round in 2018. By the Bills, never really did much with them. And if you're looking for highlights on what he brings, he led the NFL in punt return yards, with 367 yards. That's kind of the highlight. Did have 39 receptions last year, best year by far. Don't think he's going to get anywhere close to that. I set my over-under on my stat projections for Ray McCloud and the Niners at 21. I don't think he's going to hit that, and I want to change it. If you look at, again, we just talked about who were the 4 and 5 wide receivers last year. Sherfield had 9 receptions last year. Travis Benjamin had 0. he got 0 receptions as the number 5 wide receiver. But if you want to throw Sanu in there, then that's going to change it a little bit. But I said at 21.5 wide receptions would be my over-under for him, because I think you give him 1 or 2 gadget plays every other week, and you get that jet sweep in there, right, where Trey Lance just barely drops it off, but that counts as a pass, because I think you do some of that with him. Now, whenever he was drafted, again, 6th round, by the Buffalo Bills, didn't really get much, really didn't do much at all. They waived him in 2019. He got his first reception on a 13-yard punt return, in week 3 against the Vikings. Didn't catch on. Went to Carolina, was claimed off waivers by them. Nothing happened. Then he went back to Buffalo. And his main kind of claim to fame there was he was the scout team quarterback for the Buffalo Bills in the second stint, where he would mimic the small, shifty quarterbacks like Kyler Murray. I would not be shocked at all if that's going to be the case for the 49ers, where, it's special teams period, you send them to special teams and you work on kick return and punt return. But whenever you've got your first team defense out there, hey, Ray, you're Kyler Murray. You're 5'9". You're a little taller than Murray. Get over here and run around and let us see what it's like. And so I could see him doing that. Now, whenever he caught on with the Steelers in August of 2020, he became the punt returner, and man, was an all-pro punt returner. It had 28 kickoffs for 646 yards, 29 punt returns with an average of 10.7 yards. Pro Football Focus put him on their all-pro as a specialist, led the NFL in punt yards gained, like I've said, and that is why he is here. That's why Ray McCloud, that's why you pay $2 million a year, is because the 49ers have been absolutely terrible, atrocious, abysmal, one of my old words, in special teams. And so this shift in the focus, shift in priorities with money, with contracts, with roster spots on people who can help you in the special teams. And that's what he brings. He started 8 career games at wide receiver. He's played in 48. You look at his snap counts, his career snap counts, he's got 433 special team snaps, 825 offensive snaps. He's going to be a special teamer. And that's really the big deal. Now, He's had 3 years, 2019 for Carolina, and then back-to-back years for Pittsburgh in 2020 and 2021 as primary returners. His first year at Buffalo didn't really count. He had 2 returns in 2018. Throw those out. They're anomalies, right? But you look at what he was able to accomplish in punt returns, and his numbers just keep getting better, okay? 2019 for Carolina, 10 punt returns, 82 yards. Next year, 2020 in Pittsburgh, 29 punt returns, 298 yards. That's awesome. 10.3 yards per return. And then last year led the NFL, 38 punt returns, 367 yards for a 9.7. Okay, well, what the hell do those numbers mean? Who cares? The 49ers averaged right at 8 yards per punt return last year. So this is somebody that can get you 2 additional yards per punt return, right? So, okay, 2 yards, who gives a damn? Well, if you're doing 40 punt returns, 40 times 2, that's 80 extra yards on the year. That's 2 extra field goals on the year. Think about those games. This is hidden yardage. You know, we talk about special teams and how it hurts the 49ers. Hidden yardage helps your offense and defense because it increases your scoring production per drive because you don't have to get as many first downs on offense to be in scoring position. It's little things. And you know, if you're just looking at punt return yardage, that's one thing. The long, okay? If you look at the 49ers last year, the longest punt return that they had last year was 27 yards by Brandon Ayuk. Well, you don't want Brandon Ayuk returning punts. You want him being the number 2 receiver. Okay, what was the long? Listen to these longs by Ray McCloud. 57 yards, 39 yards, 36 yards, 23 yards, right? So, like, you're going to get those 2 to 3 plays a season on punt return where you're going to automatically be in scoring position because of this. That's why it's important. Okay, now let's look at kick returns. Same thing. These are his averages, okay? Averages per kick return. 18 yards for a year, 21.8 for a year, 23.1 for a year, 22.2 for a year. Think of how many times the 49ers started behind their own 20-yard line. Remember, you start at the 25 if you just kneel the ball. Well, guess what? You don't have to worry about that anymore. Not anymore. He's going to be able to step in and make a difference. You know, last year you had that one long kick return, 68 yards by Trenton Cannon, and then 33 yards by Debo. Well, again, listen to this. 2019, his longest was a 31-yard kick return. 2020, 49-yard kick return. Last year, 40-yard kick return. So these are opportunities where the 49ers offense gets to cheat. They get a start needing only 1 or 2 first downs to be in scoring position instead of 1 or 2 first downs and you're not even at midfield. They're hidden yardage. Trust me, as a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator, and I've been both, there is nothing that gets the huddle, the entire sidelines, your play callers more jazzed than starting with good field position. As defensive coordinator, you start with good field position, you feel great. They're backed up inside the 20. Whoo! You're like, oh man, you can give up a couple first downs, they're not even at midfield. Who cares? But whenever they have a good punt returner, that shifts the focus. It changes all of it. Okay, so best case scenario, this dude is a lock. He was taking all the first team reps as punt returner. They didn't do a lot of kickoff and kickoff return stuff, more individual stuff there, but was taking all the first team reps on punt return in camp. He's making the roster. That's all there is to it. Now, can he be wide receiver 4 ahead of Gray or wide receiver 5 behind Gray? That's still to be determined. A lot of that's going to be on Gray himself. But he's primary returner. Now, again, I set the over-under at 21.5 receptions. I think I'd take the under on that. But, man, if he gets those numbers, you give him a couple gadget plays, that's huge. And, again, why am I excited about Ray McCloud? 1, it shows the 49ers are serious, finally, about special teams. 2, it gives you wide receiver depth in the sense that this dude's might be one of the most experienced wide receivers we have on our roster, right? He's been around longer than everybody else, been around longer than Debo. And so he's got a little bit more experience. 2, he's good enough at the wide receiver 4 or 5 that you might be able to sneak by when it's roster cut down time, which is 5 wide receivers. If that's the case, guess what? You're sneaking an extra defensive end into the initial lineup, which is great. So somebody would have to press to get that wide receiver spot. We've talked about them in the past. If you haven't caught that, you can go back and check out all those other ones in the 49ers roster countdown. But Ray McCloud makes the team better, makes it deeper, makes it more consistent. And it turns one of the weaknesses in 2021 into a strength. Now, the issue is fumbles. Sad news is 49ers fumbled the ball so much last year in special teams anyway. You'd say, all right, if he fumbles 4 times this year, which he did the previous year, we fumbled 4 times last year in special teams. But there were no big plays to go with it. So no matter what, even if he has his career high in fumbles, you're at least getting some big play specialty. But if he can limit those and still bring that big play consistency, it's only good news, man. I really, really do like this signing. People were upset when the initial numbers came out, but whenever you look at it, it's really not that bad. It's experience in the wide receiver room, gives you a little bit more gadget plays, whatever else. If Debo's down for a game or whatever, you can still do a lot of that end-around stuff with him. And the kick return, punt return just adds so much value. Hidden yardage, baby. Hidden yardage. Anyway, thank you, Josh. You guys are incredible. Anthony, the producers of this series, great job digging up all this information. We're just going to keep counting them down.